mean something that's negative, or does longevity mean that there was a lack of connect after a certain point, and because we now have President Obama, that connection will be reunited? I don't think so. I don't think, and I don't think it was because of their support for the Clintons or the lack thereof. I think it's their myopic concentration on their jobs and whether or not they will go back to Congress for the next 2 years, whether or not they dance to the correct tune of Nancy Pelosi, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I don't have a crystal ball, you know, and I do, and I would like to hope that would not be the case, but my experience with them over the last 50 years, right, because I came out of the NAACP, you know, I came out through the judges from Joe Kennedy in California to Robert Carter here, and many of the black caucuses. So I suppose hopefully they'll develop that reconnect, but
that's moving forward. I just think it's very well known that, you know, the politics is, as far as I'm concerned, in a lot of areas, locally, nationally, for congressmen and senators, I think we need term limits. I really do. And I think that,
I do too.
For the simple fact that I think a lot of times when you're talking about that disconnect between a lot of these politicians and the people, you've been in there for so long, that they do start to kind of fade away, and they're only reelected based upon name recognition. And I think that one thing that this election is going to do is going to wake up folks. You know, anytime you have any congressman or senator who doesn't even have to debate any new upcoming opponents, only for the simple fact that they have a stronger name than anybody trying to come in, says that they feel that no matter what, they are the only ones who are going to be suitable for that job. And so I think that Barack Obama is just going to wake folks up and say, well, wait a minute, we can even have a chance to be active on the local level. And that's the important elections. On the local level are where the most important decisions are made. The presidential level is fine. Your senatormen, your councilmen, your local congressmen, your senators, these are the local elections that we have to start paying attention to now. And I think the Congressional Black Caucus needs to come back home and say, you know what, we better wake up and start paying attention to these.
And that's a good point, because when you look at the incumbents in the New York congressional delegation, I mean, winning 85, 90. 94%. I mean, you hear in the community,
most
they're
of
not.
Them didn't have.
Well, many of them had.
Ran
all of the ones in our community. Towns had an opponent. Wrangell had an opponent.
You mean in the primary?
Right. Yvette Clarke had, I think, a couple. The point I'm making is that in the community, you hear from the people they're not doing anything, and then when election time comes, you see they got 95%.
Nobody's even voting.
That tells you something.
Right.
But the last point I want to make is this. Now, this is an interesting point. The Congressional Black Caucus has never had an a black or white urban president by which to work with.
Exactly.
So that's going to be very interesting to see what kind of partnership. Now, people forget, but Barack Obama comes out of the Chicago political machine. So he is going to be extremely partial to an urban policy, an urban agenda. He has to be, whether he wants to or not. He can't go back to Cook County unless he satisfies the needs of the political machine that helped to produce him. And on top of that, I think he really is in tune with, so we've been hearing people like Reverend Jackson for the last 25, 30 years talking about reinvesting in the cities and rebuilding the infrastructure in the city. And now I think you have a president that is more inclined to look at an urban agenda since anyone, perhaps since Lyndon Johnson. So I think it's a lot of possibility and a lot of very, very positive potential as we move forward with this thing.
I think term limits
Yeah, I like term
Okay.
limits too.
Okay,
2010 term limits.
I like term limits.
so listen to this here. We're gonna get back to that, but we're gonna be right back. We gotta go to commercial breaks and pay the bills here, and we'll be right back after a brief message. Thank you.